If I have three protagonists, how do I go about writing a query letter? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. I'm really sorry to say I think you might have a structural problem in the novel. It's really difficult to say from just a comment here on TikTok, but three protagonists probably means that you don't actually know who your protagonist is and what your story is about. Remember that a protagonist is not necessarily a main character, and a main character does not necessarily equal a protagonist. I use the example of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie kind of a lot because it's a really interesting example of this. Elizabeth is the hero of the story, Will Turner is the protagonist, but Jack Sparrow is the main character. However, you need all three of them for that story to work. They are not all protagonists, though they do not change and grow and have equal weight within the story. You probably don't have three protagonists, and writing a story with 7 POVs in your first book is highly ambitious. It's not impossible, but it is highly ambitious. We are talking about query letters, which is what your question actually is about, is how do I write the query letter? A query letter is about the stakes of the story. Why do we care? What happens if they fail? If you can't answer that super clearly, then we definitely have a structural problem. If you think that you have three separate sets of stakes or four separate sets of stakes, we have probably a structural problem. Now, it is entirely possible that you are someone who is as accomplished as the greatest fantasy ensemble writers of all time on your first go round. That's unlikely, but it is possible. So make sure that you are getting feedback from a writing group. Make sure that you know and understand your stakes. Your query letter should be able to very clearly say who is your protagonist, what do they want, what are they willing to do to get it, what is standing in their way, and what happens if they fail. And if you really have three protagonists, you should have those stakes all lined up for all three of them. They should be intermingled in a way that they cannot possibly be separated from one another, and they should all have exact equal weight on all of those answers. If that's the case, then you do that in a query letter, and it should still also be able to boil down to less than 500 words.